We hear it in the voices of the hurting. We sense it in the brokenness of the world around us. Lostness is a blindness to the promise and hope of the gospel that leads to eternal separation from the Father. The world's greatest problem is lostness, and it's growing every day. 8 billion people, living in 195 countries, speaking over 7,000 languages. Today, more than half have yet to hear the good news of the gospel. The vision God gives us in Revelation 7:9, a multitude from every nation, all tribes, peoples, and languages, fuels our desire to take the gospel to the ends of the earth. But we must be willing to go further than we've ever gone before, to the very edges of lostness, where more than 3,000 people groups have no missionary presence and likely no access to the gospel. No one is engaging them. Together, we can change that. We know the love and hope and peace of the gospel. We know the way, the truth, and the life. We know the power of true redemption. We will not ignore lostness. We will not be silent. We will not stand still. From the Great Commission until the great multitude, we must unite in this great pursuit to reach every nation, no matter the cost.
There's people that I've met that are like, I wake up, go to work, go in VR, sometimes I sleep in VR, and then I wake up and do it all over again. And who else is going to evangelize to them? If Dr. Taco never evangelized to me, I don't know where I would be today.
In virtual reality, they are real people all around the world that are genuinely looking for some type of social interaction, to fill some void in their life that they might be missing in real life. There are people that are lost. They become recluse or shut in to where they don't want to go out into the real world again, so they retreat to the virtual world.
I was very unhappy in my life. I became an alcoholic. I just became so depressed and spiteful of everybody around me. To get away from that, I just wanted to be alone with other people that were also lonely and introverted. And so I eventually found this game called VR Chat. In virtual reality, people are inherently more sinful than they are in real life. Whenever I was in VR, I would drink and I would just ruin everybody's day. I would say very hateful things to them. I'd say very hurtful things to them. And so a lot of people in virtual reality, they do that. They're able to open up about their sins, and they're able to hang out with people that enables them to continue to be even more sinful than they would be in real life. That day, I was just hanging out by myself, drinking, and there's this guy and he's testing out his new avatar.
That's perfect. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2. And this tiny 2-foot tall Nutella jar with a face and legs comes running up to us and starts kind of like making fun. And so I was saying, we're gonna go ahead and head out. But one of my friends named Silver stayed behind and actually got to talk to Michaela more.
And Silver, she was just sitting alone by herself. So I started talking to her. I was a little drunk at the time. And so I started sharing all of my woes to her. She was like, there's this guy named Dr. Taco. And I was like, oh, that's the guy I just made fun of. Dr. Taco and I start talking. And I'm like, hey, my life is actually really awful. And he said, you can fix that with Jesus. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And he starts to share the gospel with me, and he continues to share the gospel with me. It started to fill this void in my heart that I've been chasing with alcohol. And instead of filling that void with hatred, I wanted to have my heart filled with Jesus. So my husband and I now, we do virtual ministry, which is just like any other real life ministry, except you go into a video game and you tell people about Jesus.
That's just a tool. That's just one of the many, many, many tools missionaries are using to reach out to the lost around them.
It's not very much different, except for maybe you're sharing the gospel with, like a SpongeBob character, or you're sharing the gospel with a carrot with legs or a banana with sunglasses.
VR Chat is that same avenue to bring people from where they are without Christ to a relationship and a life with Christ.
Although virtual reality isn't the real world. There's real people inside of it, and there's real people there that need the gospel.
Smoke rising from the barracks where the Royal Guard still held out, the view over Kuwait City just before 10 on the 2nd of August.
When someone takes a AK-47 and put it to your chest and cock it, you know that you're only one pull of a trigger away.
Some people would say that my parents weren't very responsible parents for taking me to Kuwait where the Persian Gulf War broke out. Some people would say that's irresponsible to take your kids with you into your calling where there's so much suffering. But rather than it taking me further from God, it actually helped take me closer to God. Because one of the things I learned at an early age, God actually calls the people of God to move towards the hardest places of this earth. Nobody knew anything about Kuwait. It was just this little dot on this map in the Middle East. But 3 months later, on August 2nd, 1990, Saddam Hussein and Iraqi troops invaded Kuwait, and we were living right downtown. There were 4 sets of Iraqi troops that broke into our apartment. And as a 10-year-old, I just began crying. And I didn't actually know if I was gonna live. I didn't know if we were actually gonna even make it through that day.
We knew we had to leave quickly. I was held downstairs by gunpoint, but when I came back up the steps and we all jumped in a car and drove out of downtown, and there were Iraqi soldiers all around us, and we drove right through the middle of them as if God blinded them. And then we all gathered into the American embassy. Within a few days, the embassy got locked down. They eventually turned off the water, the fresh water, and electricity to get us out. Heat was 120 degrees, no air conditioning. But the hardest part, I think, came 6 weeks later, when Lottie and Peter and Aaron left the embassy, and I turned them over to Iraqi soldiers to take to the airport. Those are hard moments, even this been 30 years later. Because I want to live out God's call. And part of that living out that call is being connected to God's Spirit. And what is God asking you to do? And is He big enough to take care of you? Or do you think you have to do it all yourself? That is the struggle of following God. And then turn to God. God, if my life is taken, are you going to take care of the boys? Are you going to take care of the wife? Can I trust you? What was going on in the background of the story that I didn't know was thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people were praying for me personally.
My mom, my brother, and I now were back in Nashville living. And it was coming up for the Lottie Moon Christmas offering that the International Mission Board of the Southern Baptist Convention puts together, a week of prayer leading into this big offering every December. And there were literally millions of Christians all throughout the country that were praying specifically for my dad to be released.
And it really wasn't real to me until I got on the plane in Baghdad that I was actually going to leave and survive and be home. It's not about me. It's about the millions of people praying and God doing a miraculous event.
I believe that God is looking for people who are willing to move towards the hard places and stay even when it's hard and trust that the Holy Spirit still speaks and confirms His promises in our lives.
Виїжджали на 10-й день війни, і це був самий початок. Рішення прийняв чоловік відправити нас. Я їхала сама, вся родина залишилася вдома. Ми в безпеці, так. І, звичайно, перші слова чоловіку, що ми у безпеці вже. Все, ми на місці, ми у Польщі, нас добре прийняли.
Poland brought in the most refugees out of any country. And through that, the Lord opened the door for us to open a refugee center.
People stay in the house anywhere from 2 days to long term. We have one lady that's been there almost since it opened and is there currently.
Так, цей дім взагалі для мене став як другий дім, тому що ми майже рік тут. Холі Крістін нас зустріла. Ну, тобто, реально так, я знову відчула, що я в безпеці. І мені необхідно було бути і серед людей, тому що ну, також важкі часи, якось переживати це все разом було мені легше.
Like to hear what you think about having someone like Holly in the house.
Це наша друга мама, можна сказати.
We started a Bible study at the center. And one of the ladies one night was sharing with me that her family was against her studying religion or knowing anything about it. And she didn't know which one was true. And she said, so I just prayed and asked God if He would show me which one is true, which one should I believe, what can I believe? But then the war happened and I came here. And she's like, and then I realized that God led me here and He led me to you. And so she's like, and now I get to study the Bible and now I can learn. Those are the days that you leave super encouraged about what the Lord is doing. So those are good days.
I want to thank the churches of the Southern Baptist Convention for sending your missionaries and your support to Ukraine. I came to know Jesus Christ because of a Southern Baptist missionary. I began to grow as a Christian because of a Southern Baptist missionary. And we have served with the missionaries from the IMB over all these years. I planted my church. I was ordained in this church with a missionary from the IMB ordaining me. And right now, when the war in Ukraine began, my wife, she had to walk across the border from Ukraine into Romania. And the first people who met her on that other side were our dear friends from the IMB. They were able to welcome her, to give her a hug, to give her a hot cup of tea, and to send her further. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your prayers. And thank you for your presence with us around the world. God bless you abundantly.